everyone, and welcome to today's edition. I am your anchor, Blessing Dolo, broadcasting live from the OLDN TV studios. And with me today is an amazing person. He's a coach, he's a podcaster, and he's an OD and leadership practitioner. In the person of Mr. Roberto Bendana. I hope I pronounced that correctly. Hello, Mr. Roberto Bendana, and thank you very much for joining us today. How are you?
Hello, hola, bienvenidos a OLDN TV.
Amazing. Thank you so much. So, how are you faring today, sir?
I'm good, thank you. I am so honored to be here, and I want to, I'm grateful for the invitation. And I want to thank you for that.
Actually, the honor is mine. I'm grateful you accepted our invitation, and I'm happy you joined. Having said that, once you accepted to join, I drafted some few questions, and I intended not to take much of your time since you're a very busy person. So, without any further ado, I would like us to proceed to the questions. So,
Sure.
first of all, could you kindly share with us who you are? Like, could you give us a brief introduction of who you are? That's career-wise.
I am originally a psychology major. Means I'm a psychologist. I have a bachelor's in science and psychology, specifically behavioral and cognitive psychology. And then I worked as a corporate trainer. I also worked as a language trainer for many years. Actually, an interesting note. My first job was when I was 17 years old at a language school in Mexico. So I started actually coming in contact with teaching and with speaking and public speaking, because when you're 17 years old and you have a room full of 40 adults, you have to develop skills of public speaking and engagement and being able to communicate with people and empathize with people. So that's one of the reasons why we'll explain what I do. But that first contact of actually having that job and developing it over many years in many other ways has been a cornerstone of my development in my career. Having said that, so while I was studying in the university in Mexico for my bachelor's in psychology, I was working on the side, giving English classes and doing other things. And in general, I also have a certification from INCAE Business School, which is a very reputable and well-known business school in Central America. Actually, it was chartered during the time of John F. Kennedy. As an initiative of Harvard Business School to actually bring the type of case study method to Latin America and to Central America to develop leaders through the institution. So that's an interesting story of INCAE Business School. So it has those beginnings, and that's why it's so recognized and so important. And currently, right now. I have a podcast. I'm not sure if I'm going on with this. I'm not sure if I should give my curriculum, but that's it. I mean, I'm a psychologist. I'm a leadership coach. And if you want more information about my background, you can check out my LinkedIn. I don't want to go into that right now.
Okay, great. Thank you very much. So, I did done a bit of research on who you are. So I found out that you are a podcaster, leadership coach,
Yeah.
personal branding specialist, and a change maker. What is the
Yeah.
secret to such a profile, and what drives you the most?
What is the secret to such a profile? I guess really now, if that's the question, I would say simply do what you love and engage in things and activities that drive you and that are fueled by your purpose and by your strengths and talents. So you mentioned a couple of things, leadership coaching. Ever since I received my certification in executive and leadership coaching from INCAE, I've tried to focus on working with leaders, and that links to what's on there about empowering dreamers to change the world, because I was very driven to make an impact. And I said, well, what's the demographic that I can work with as a coach that would bring the most impact to the world? And that's with people who have positions of influence either because they're CEOs or because they have a high standing in organizations, and their decisions make a big impact way beyond their scope of influence. And that is why I became a leadership coach. And I also understood that branding was essential to communicating yourself in any context and showing who you are. So that's part of that. And so when it comes to the change maker piece, well, it's all about having a cognitive bias, which is driven to personal optimization, which requires you constant self-reflection, the focus on self-awareness, and to painstakingly be willing to understand that there are things that you can do better.
Wow.
Always. That's what a change maker is for me. A change maker makes changes within themselves before they ever want to change anything outside of themselves. Right?
Wow. That is great. That is actually great. So now mentioning the change maker, I'm gonna ask you, what does it take to become a change maker? Empowering dreamers to change the world. And it will interest you to know that most social media motivational speakers seem to say stuff along these lines.
Really? Is that true? I don't know. Okay. You've seen it before, maybe? Okay. So, I love these questions because they're really making me think. So thank you for these questions. Nobody asks me these questions, so I'm very happy to answer them. So again, empowering leaders or empowering dreamers to change the world, which here, the point is that I have a specific life purpose, and part of my life purpose and the clarity on that has a component of making a big impact because I've decided to do that. I could decide to not do that, to not want to pursue that, but I have deliberately decided to pursue that. Therefore, again, goes back to working with leaders and why I have a podcast on leadership. We'll get to that. But it's all aligned to my purpose, which is find personal fulfillment and help others find the same while making a huge impact on the world. Now, dreamers. A dreamer, in my understanding, this is my subjective understanding of it, is a human being that would like to see better things happen and are not necessarily satisfied with the current state of affairs, right? I'll give you some examples of dreamers that actually made a change. Nikola Tesla made a change. You know, Nikola Tesla, a genius, and a lot of the technology we have now is because of the hours and hours he did alone in his cottage in a remote part of the United States alone. And Albert Einstein, you know, Martin Luther King, John F. Kennedy, these are my heroes. John F. Kennedy unfortunately lost his life for trying to change things in such a way that it was dangerous to the status quo. So those are the people I want to associate with. Now, I don't say that I want to associate with those people because I think they're better than anybody else. It's just a personal choice because I have to focus on who I want to have relationships with, because that has to do with the outcomes I want to generate in my life. And those outcomes are connected to my vision, which is connected to my purpose. So that's the way I would tell you why I say that, why I put that on my profile. That's a very long explanation, but I hope it clarifies. And going to the point of a lot of motivational speakers say that, well, I don't know why they say that. I would have to ask them personally, like, why are you saying that? Maybe they would give you a different answer as to why they put that.
Okay.
I'm guessing now. I would like to ask you, why do you think they put things like that?
Actually, I've been really curious because first of all, I'm not much of a fan of motivational speakers. I don't listen to them a lot because there are certain things they say out of theology. They say out of what we call in Africa bookmatics. You know what bookmatics is?
I have no idea.
Bookma- Bookmatics actually is what is defined. For example, marketing, Philip Kotler's definition of marketing is a social and managerial process responsible for identifying and satisfying consumers' needs and wants
Exactly.
profitably and efficiently. That's the bookmatics part of marketing. But you see that in this era, marketing applies in another kind of sector. So when you start saying what people in the old said, and you're not saying what is real in life, I really don't buy that case. I don't flow with that a lot. I usually don't flow with that. So I'm not much of a
Okay.
listener to motivational speakers. Yeah. So
Well, I mean, can I add something that, do you think I'm a motivational speaker? Do you get that idea from the
based
profile?
look, what when I listen to your videos and when I read your post, I don't think you're a motivational speaker. I think you're an empowerment speaker because it's quite empowering. There is a difference between empowering and motivation. Like I can
Okay,
give you
it's
a
good.
motivation, but there is a ginger somewhere with the empowering. So I think,
Right,
in my opinion, like you're an empowerment speaker
right.
when you have the ability
Motivation.
to uplift someone.
Exactly. So the thing
Motivation,
is, sorry. I'm sorry I interrupted you.
yeah, yeah, motivation actually doesn't really sit well with me because there are a bit of contradiction somewhere. Empowerment, oh man, it's anyways, I cannot really go into that now because of the time frame, but empowerment and motivation are two different things. They look alike, but they are totally different from each other. Totally.
Yeah.
Totally. So one of the things I got thrilled because of your background, I really read through it and I was so intimidated. I was scared to text you. I was like, let me try that. I'll try it. If he responds, and I'm good.
No, of
So when I
course, of
tried and he
course.
responded, I was like, yay! I was really
I'm
thrilled.
glad. Well, thank
Thank
you,
you very
thank
much.
you. I was very glad.
Okay. So with the things you've said, could you tell us about your background or your upbringing and how it shaped you to the person you are today?
Yeah. Well, I was born in the Panama Canal Zone, 1982. Both my parents are from Nicaragua, which is a small uh, Central American country. My father, so this is a long story. I'm gonna try to cut it. Okay,
Terrible.
the circumstances under which I was born were specifically peculiar because I was born in an American territory in Panama, uh, which was based on an accord between I'm not sure. I think President Ford. I'm not sure. President Ford and the Panamanian president. I think in '79. I'm getting these. I'm not sure if I'm getting. I'm not even going to go into dates. Okay, so there was an accord that the United States was going to take over the Canal Zone, in Panama for 20 years, and I was born within that area during that time frame in 1982, and I obtained the nationality of the United States, the Panamanian nationality, and the Nicaraguan nationality. So from there came my multicultural background of having to be in different places and having to understand different cultures and trying to adapt. So one of the main things about, if I'm going to answer your question, one of the main things about my background that has helped me today is that in my life, I've been through so many changes, living in different homes, living in different countries, having different friends, going to different schools. All these constant changes in my life put me in out of my comfort zone constantly. So I was born under interesting circumstances. That's why I have three nationalities, with multicultural backgrounds, having to live in an army base. And then I had to live in Nicaragua 10 years later, which is one of the poorest countries in the world. So very contrasting events took me in my childhood and adolescence that marked me in the way of having to adapt and having to be resilient under sometimes very stressful circumstances. And I think that has shaped, again, wanting to be a change maker because that has driven me to want to constantly change, not for the sake of changing, but for the sake of personal joy and satisfaction. And it's a little paradoxical because I'm looking for satisfaction, but to be able to optimize, you constantly have to be dissatisfied with how you're doing things. And that's a paradox, right? Because if you were satisfied with who you are at any point in time, then you would fall into these are my opinions, I'm not saying this is true for everybody, you would possibly fall into a comfort zone and say, I'm happy with my life, I'm happy with who I am, I'm happy with my job, I have no reason to do anything different, I think I'm going to stay here until I retire. Well, fine, and that's great, and many people live that life and have very meaningful and impactful lives, but that's not the way I see it. And I think that these constant changes and constant challenges that this brings have led me to be very resilient and to be able to adapt easily to major changes. So for example, COVID came, and so based on my history, when these types of strong changes come that completely transform your circumstances, the way I face them is I try to innovate. I try to find a way to do the best possible with what I have and with what everybody has available now, which is stay at home, which is maybe get a different job or whatever that means. So, and that has also, I don't know if I'm dragging on, I'll finish with this. I don't want to drag on with this. Just to close, I'll say that these circumstances that I'm mentioning have also probably driven me to want to be an entrepreneur, because an entrepreneur is in constant change, in flux, and is constantly trying new things and constantly failing. And I'm very comfortable at failing. I failed maybe more than 100 times more, and I'm happy to fail. Hope I don't fail in this interview. That's a joke.
You're not gonna fail any interview. You see,
That's a
that's
joke.
one.
That's a joke.
Yeah, of course. This is one of the reasons why I say you're very empowering, because you see the things that are real. For example, you quoted the incidents of COVID-19 is real. And
Yeah, of course.
you mentioned identifying certain things and working on it. These things are real. I can relate to that. So me being able to relate to that and noticing how you overcame those things actually is an uplifting to my spirit. So through
Okay.
this I am empowered. That is why I say I really enjoyed your stuff, and that's why I said I would term you as an empowerment personnel. Like, it's quite empowering.
Thank you. Maybe I'll change my LinkedIn headline because joking, I'm joking. All right,
Okay,
all right. Good, 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 good. All right.
okay,
So
it's
thank you for
good.
that question. That was an
Okay,
amazing question. Thank you so much.
okay. So I'm taking us back to one of the things I saw on Facebook. You were the panelist at Facebook live session by ICF. That's
Yeah.
Monterey Community on September 3rd. The session discussed the emotionally intelligent leader in Spanish.
Yes.
Kindly
Yes.
shed more light on.
You want me to say that in Spanish? It's Comunidad ICF Monterrey,
Wow.
el líder emocionalmente inteligente.
Uh,
So, because you asked me to say something else in Spanish, I'll throw in that bonus, say it in Spanish.
okay.
Again, that's another joke. But your question is about leadership and emotional intelligence, the importance to
Mm,
leadership,
yes,
correct?
correct.
Well, I think we are emotional beings. Okay, we are inherently emotional beings since we are born. There is what is called attachment theory, which is, I'm sure you know a little bit about attachment. The baby mammal with the mother mammal. We are mammals, right? And we have to have attachment with the mother and feel security to be able to develop cognitively, physically, to be able to function in the environment we're in, which is the society. So attachment is an indication that we are fundamentally emotional creatures. So why does this take me to emotional intelligence and leadership? So what does a monkey in the forest and the attachment to the mom have to do with leadership? Well, it has to do a lot, because the emotionally intelligent human being is a person who, number one, is aware about how their emotional responses to things that happen to them impact their decision making. Okay? I got angry. I woke up angry today, and therefore maybe I was snarky at my daughter, and she felt it. She felt it. I was snarky at her. Or maybe I made a look to my wife, and she felt it. And it's like, how aware am I of how my emotional response is because I'm having a bad day, because I have a terrible backache, I'm in pain. How does that circumstance trigger emotions that trigger interactive decisions with people around me, right? Now let's take that to an organization. A leader is having bad times with his personal life, right? That's triggering very deep and difficult emotions for him or her. He's going to the office, and the decisions he's making at work, which are driven by those very challenging emotions, can affect the way direct report perceives him, the result of a deal, just the general direction of the company. So again, emotional intelligence is a human being that, aside from being aware of how emotions impact their decision making, as well is able to self-regulate and understand that if they're going through a divorce at home, that they still have to find a way to cope with the emotions and have the decision making at work as a CEO not be, it's going to affect, let's be real, but to try to minimize the collateral damage it could have. And that is a person who has emotional intelligence. And specifically, that's the way it applies to leadership, and the ability to also put aside those things and focus on the person in front of you. And that is easier said than done. I think we all talk about leadership, we all talk about emotional intelligence, but actually living it, it's not, I don't know, for me, it's just difficult because I have a very high standard for myself. But hey, I don't know what you would think about that. That's my answer. I don't know if that answers your question. I hope I'm answering your question.
It's amazing. It's actually amazing, because usually I have this phrase like, always get your emotions in control and never get your don't let your emotions control you. You should be able to control your emotions. Sometimes it's not really applicable based on what you're going through. So most times it's okay, but sometimes it's really not suitable. Then again, I really applaud you. This is one of the reasons why I say you're an empowerment personnel. Like, because these things are real. You have emotions are real. Challenges coming day in, day out. How you handle these challenges amongst others it's really a thing to do. That's why I'm really, really, really pleased to have you on board. You'll be surprised at one of this next question I'm about to ask you. Simplicity
Okay.
and joy are the keys to lasting happiness. Guess who said that?
I did.
Mr. Roberto Bendana said that.
I
Could you
did. I
please,
did. That's why there's an R on here. I said that. Yes. Yes, I
so
put it.
could you break that down for us, please?
Simplicity and joy. Well, we live in a world that is highly complex. We receive so much information every single second of the day. Aside from the information coming into our brains from our senses, just the light, the sound, everything, we have, where's my device? Well, I don't have my device. Well, we have social media, and we have the internet, and we have YouTube, and we have everything that's out there. And that we tend to want to direct our attention to all those things because they're all shiny objects that seem interesting. So there are a lot of decisions we make based on interesting things. You know, FOMO, fear of missing out. I want to watch that video. I want to see the comment about the debate. You know, all these things of wanting to look for and get, and there's millions of options. So the excessive amount of options, the excessive amount of information adds complexity and affects our decision making. Therefore, if we are emotionally intelligent and self-aware, we can begin to discard things that we do, relationships we have, things we engage in, like having 50 WhatsApp groups, being in 50 WhatsApp groups. How many WhatsApp groups are you part of?
I lost count, actually.
Okay, right? Why do you need to be in 50 WhatsApp groups and you put silence on all of them? Silence for a year, silence for a year, silence for a year. But they're still there, right? So why? It's like, get out of all the WhatsApp groups that are not necessary.
Yeah.
That's one example of how we add complexity to our lives. We overcomplicate things. So if we basically take away everything that is not necessary or not required for us to be happy and start seeing what it is, what things are the things that are priority to us really, then we can begin to focus on those things, and that will bring joy. And joy is not happiness. Joy is really, I would say, a deeper sentiment of deep satisfaction with what is happening on a day-to-day basis. Right? Because when you reflect about your life, it's like, are you happy with your life? Or like, overall, yes, I'm happy. Now, that is an evaluation of me when I get asked. Ask me in 10 minutes when I stub my toe, are you happy with your life? You're like, I don't know, it really hurts. I'm not sure if I'm happy now. Joy is a more long-standing, just sense that every day I'm living with joy. I like what I'm doing. I like the people I'm with. And I believe that if you simplify things in your life, you get rid of the things that are unnecessary, you can begin to engage with what's meaningful and start experiencing more joy. That's my long answer to that question.
Wow. I was supposed to stand up and do like that. But because of the camera, I'm not gonna stand. I'm just gonna do like
Thank
that.
you so much. Thank you so much. Thank you so much.
Wow! Did you just say what I think you just said? Oh man! Thank you so much for that. Thank you so much for that. Yeah, because happiness and joy. That was quite. If you had not said this, I'm not sure I would have known there was a difference to that. Thank you very much.
Yeah,
I would bring it to you. That is why you're an empowerment personnel, in my opinion, in my humble opinion.
I just want to make just a disclaimer. That is my perception of happiness and joy. I'm sure if there's a textbook that makes a differentiation, it's probably not the same as I told you. Those are my understandings of the differences based on my personal experience. I just want to just make that disclaimer.
Okay. And based on the explanation you gave, it's fascinating. It's mind-blowing. It's explosive in a good way, by the way. That is amazing. Actually, moving on to the next question. People normally talk about good leaders. What has been your experience with bad leadership, coach? What advice would you give to people who might be experiencing such kind of leadership?
So your question here is if I've had experiences with bad leaders who have been my leaders, or seeing bad leadership coaching. I'm not
experiencing bad leadership coaching.
Oh, well, number one, I've never been coached by a bad leadership coach, just to make that. So I would say no to that. But there's a second part to your question, right? There's a second part to your question. The people that might be experiencing that.
Yeah.
Now I have a question for you.
What advice would you give them? For example.
Okay, because I was trying to see where you were coming from that question, but I just want to make a note on this. There's, in the coaching world, like in any other world, like in psychology, there are like different cliques. You know what a clique is? In the United States, a clique is like a small group that thinks that they're the best, right? So we're the executive coaching clique that thinks that executive coaching is the best done this way. And the other little clique or group says, no, you do it wrong because we think we do it right. So from that perspective, every single little cell that describes or defines executive coaching or coaching in general from specific parameters usually thinks that they have the best definition. Okay?
True.
Now, there are distinctions to what coaching is and what coaching is not. This is a long answer, but what I would say to that is, in essence, from my definition, and why am I giving a definition of coaching from that question, and I'll explain why, is really being able to facilitate the empowerment of another human being, meaning the capacity for the other human being to understand that they have the control, they have the complete locus of control is within them, right? They are the ones that are in charge of their lives, and that they must be aware of how they make decisions and how that impacts how they're satisfied with their lives. So there's a piece of clarity and self-awareness, but also coaching facilitates taking action. So going from reflection and clarity to clarity of action. That's when setting SMART goals, making an action plan comes into play. Now, there are many ways of doing that, right? You can do that through a purely non-directive way, which are the non-directive coaches who believe that that really the coach should never influence the client directly, should never make leading questions or direct questions, should always be very open in the approach to allow the person to flourish at their own pace. There are other coaches that think that it's good to give advice sometimes in a session if it's going to help the client maybe understand something from the coach's perspective. So again, those are just two examples. So there's many different flavors of coaching. All flavors are good and all flavors are useful. Possibly. I don't want to make that statement and then say that that's true. I'm saying that in my experience, most people who receive coaching, no matter what flavor, usually receive benefits. Now, based on that, I could not say that there is a person that experienced very negative coaching unless the coach did not behave ethically. Now, that's something a little different. Yeah. The way the coach behaves can definitely determine what satisfaction the person perceives from their coaching. But in generally, coaching in general, I believe, is mostly empowering and mostly brings results. So I just want to be very careful on how I communicate this. Why am I saying all this concerning your question about good or bad coaching? Is good or bad coaching, number one, is subjective. Number one is dependent on the relationship between the coach and the client, and is fundamentally based on trust, right? If there is no trust, then usually the results of the coaching aren't as good as it could be, but that does not mean that it is bad coaching. Okay, that would be my take on understanding if there's ever a bad coach.
Wow.
Having said that, there are people calling themselves coaches who are coercing other people to change, and that is in no way coaching, and that is just a marketing ploy to be able to associate themselves with an industry that is very visible. But that's another conversation to have. I just wanted to make that note as well. There are people selling themselves as coaches who aren't certified or who are certified by some remote, strange coaching school, which there are many, and maybe harming people. So yes, that is something that is happening. So let's not try to be too Pollyannish with this. That is happening in the coaching industry.
Great. See, the way you answered the question, it's far from what I expected you would answer. And then the way you started answering, it got me a lot of questions in my mind. So when I start compiling the questions to ask you, once you're done explaining, then eventually it's as though you can read the questions in my mind and then you started answering. So I was going to ask you, like, so in other words, there are no bad people in the industry, and then you went ahead to answer. So great.
Yeah, well,
ask you that. You did political science some time ago. Did you study that? Political
I
science?
did not. This is remember, I've been speaking in front of people since I was 17 years old. So I've been doing this for a while.
You answer that in a very wise way, more or less like a politician or like a psychologist. Oh, I
Thank you for
actually.
Yeah, exactly. Thank you.
So one of the last questions, though I really had a lot of questions, but because of your time frame, I don't want to keep you too long. The OLDN believes that leadership at self and family level is fundamental to leading sustainable change. What's your view on this? And how can one become effective at leading self and family, and rephrasing the effective at leading at self and family, and the society as large?
Yeah, it's completely connected. I'm going to make a reference to Stephen Covey. You know Stephen Covey, the the highly effective habits, the 7 habits of highly effective people. He talked about 2 things. He talked about I think it was primary and secondary. I don't know if the word was success, but he was saying there's I don't know if the word was success, but what he was trying to say is that, let's use the word success. There's primary success. And I'm not sure if that's the word, but primary success means that first, before getting public acclaim outside, you've got to do the work where? Who do you live with? I mean, unless you live alone, you must have maybe a group of friends. There are human beings that you interact with that are not your work colleagues. There must be, right? Hopefully, because if not, you may be a hermit, but that's okay as well. The thing is that those people you interact with on a primary level, the people who see you when you wake up, right? Or who first talk to you during the day, which are sometimes family, the success on how you manage those relationships, how you communicate with those people, how those people trigger you and how you trigger them, and what you do when the triggers happen. That's the beginning of leadership, right? Now, again, that I think is the biggest challenge leaders have, is to understand that if they want to sell themselves as leaders on a video like this or on their LinkedIn profile, they should also ask themselves, how am I leading my life and how am I leading the people that depend on me? The same way that my direct reports depend on me at work. Am I applying all the leadership jargon to my family? If you are, that's amazing. If you're not, what's happening? So that's the way I would answer your question. Of course it is tied, and more than being tied to that, it is essential, because then the human being, the person who has the influential position as a CEO or a VP of whatever, or vice president or a country manager or whatever you want to call it, they have people that depend on them to make decisions. And they must understand that if they also mirror what they do at work at home, or mirror what they do at home at work and do it well, then they can have a higher sense of joy in their lives and alignment. And if they'll be more satisfied, and therefore they'll do better. They'll do their job as leaders in a more effective and efficient manner. So of course they're tied. And this also goes all the way to the scale of maybe a president, people who make decisions that affect millions of people. They also have families, right? Joe Biden and Donald Trump also have families. How are they leading their families, right? That's why in the debate, they were talking about their children and things like that, right? So it's like, hey, you want to be the president? What's up with your kid? This is just an example about how in a presidential debate, they were talking about family. Why? They're the future leaders of the United States. So of course it goes all the way up to that scale, right? So that's the way I would answer. It's completely and intricately connected. And to be able to have that secondary success, Stephen Covey says, you've got to take care of the success that happens behind closed doors that nobody sees. That's the essence of success in the public sphere.
Wow. Mr. Roberto, it is really very well. I'll tell you why I said I often don't listen to motivational speakers. I do listen to empowerment speakers, and I read their articles. Why I say motivation and in my opinion, I'm not saying that is how it applies generally. In my opinion, I think motivation has to do just a temporal duration for you. But empowerment it's a long way to go. For example, because of the lifestyle you had when you were growing up, I can totally relate to that perfectly. And as a result of that, there are certain decisions that were influenced based on my past. So because of what you said, because you saw that and you did not let your environment keep you back, you had to fight for it in the better days. And so it's quite relatable. I can relate to that. In case I had stayed on one lane, like after all, I'm from here, or I'm feeling comfortable. Listening to this gives me an empowerment. It sustains me. So and it's actually long lasting. It's not quite short. Like a motivation, in my opinion, I think motivations are quite short sometimes. Like someone tells me,
Right, like yeah,
yeah,
like the Tony Robbins,
hmm,
right? It's like everybody who agrees say I,
hmm,
right?
yeah,
Everybody who agrees say I. So that's a,
yeah.
I'm sorry, Tony. I'm sorry if
No, no
if you ever
problem.
see this, Tony. I'm sorry. I mean you're doing great work, but the work you do, I'm speaking to Tony Robbins, right? The work you do on the shows may have some temporary results, my friend. So I just want to say that, but you're a
Yeah.
great person. That's for Tony Robbins. But anyway, say I. Having said that, yes, motivational speaking and these events, come on, let's get up and dance. All right. So you go back home and we're getting up and dancing, but you still have the problems you have after the dancing. Right. So take responsibility. Coaching is about that responsibility and action. Take
Mm,
responsibility and take action,
yeah.
right? And that's one of the things I love about. But anyways, and I sent them an invite on LinkedIn. I think I'm gonna take that off now because if he
No,
ever
no, no
sees
problem.
this,
Everyone is entitled to an opinion, I'm sure. He wouldn't find
I'm
any
joking. This is my humor. So my humor is a little black. So
okay.
you're getting, this is what you get. But I mean, thank you so much for the interview. I loved it. I
Mhm.
really, really liked it. Your questions were insightful, were on
Yeah,
point, and thank you for giving me the opportunity to express myself. And it was amazing. I'm so happy to have been
amazing.
here.
So, something just came to my mind, and I wrote it down during the time you were talking. And why are professional bodies like OLDN, why are they important for professionals?
Well, they definitely are because they are a
Hold on, please.
space.
Could you say
Uh,
that in Spanish, please? Please.
say what? Sorry.
Could you
My
respond?
answer.
Yeah,
My
could you
answer.
respond to that in Spanish? Yes, please.
Okay. Yo creo que son espacios muy importantes porque permiten la interacción entre personas y permiten la exploración del liderazgo y el desarrollo personal y organizacional para que las personas generen un mayor nivel de conciencia personal y empiecen a cambiar su toma de decisiones para mejorar su calidad de vida y la calidad de vida de otros. Y por eso creo que iniciativas y comunidades para el desarrollo, no nada más de empresarios, de empresas y de industrias, tiene un impacto también en la calidad de vida familiar y personal de las personas involucradas. There. That's my answer.
Wow. Wow. Am I supposed to say gracias, señor? Muchas gracias. How do you say
Bienvenido.
thank you very much?
Muchas gracias.
Yeah,
Yes.
muchas gracias, señor. I'm very delighted that you joined us today. Once again, I am so grateful that you honored my invitation. I was so scared by your your profile. I'm very glad you looked at my profile and you accepted my invitation. It is
Of
indeed
course.
a
Of
great
course.
honor.
Of
Thank you
course.
very
Of
much,
course.
Mr.
Please
Robert.
don't. I hope I didn't. Are you scared? Are you still scared? Of course you're not. No,
No,
you're not
no, no,
scared.
no, that
No,
was
come on. That was a
amazing.
joke. That was a joke. That was a joke.
It's
Of
amazing.
course you're not scared. You've interviewed me for an hour. Of course you're not scared.
So you have a
But
book, though? You have a book? A book. Have you written a
no, I
book?
don't. No, I don't. I should have a book. I
Okay.
should have a book. That's in my bucket list. I should have 10 books. I
Bueno.
will, at least one.
Okay.
I have a friend who's helping me out with that, but that's going to be a surprise.
Okay.
But yeah, I'm working on that. Hopefully.
So, peradventure, the viewers might want to get in touch with you. What are your social media handles, please?
Yeah, well, on the post I would give it to you. You're going to post this on YouTube,
Okay.
correct?
All right. Oh,
If
yeah. Okay.
Okay, so I would they could go to Linktree, right? Linktree is a place where you have all the links, the social media links for a person, and it's Roberto Bendana Coach, right? So it's Linktree, right? / Roberto Bendana Coach, which is basically my name and coach at the end. It's very
Okay.
simple. And they can find me there, and once they go to Linktree, they can either have a conversation with me if they want me to help them with coaching or personal branding or things like that. And they can connect with me on LinkedIn and go to Leadership Link YouTube channel, which I would definitely be grateful if they would go and show their support for the show. It's just starting, and I'm sure it's going to be wonderful.
Amazing.
But I'm the one who's making it, so I think I have to believe that, and I do. But hey, we'll see what happens.
That's great. Thank you very much, sir. Sorry I disturb you a lot. Could you say thank you for watching OLDN and stay tuned in? And then before I do the closure, please.
In Spanish?
Yep, señor.
Okay. Okay. Muchas gracias por sintonizarte a OLDN TV y nos vemos la próxima. Muchas gracias, Blessing.
Thank you very much, sir. Thank you everyone for watching today's edition. Once again, I am your anchor, Blessing Dolo from the OLDN TV studios. And if you're watching us again on YouTube, please make sure you subscribe and hit the bell notification button so you're notified whenever we upload a new video. And to meet Mr. Roberto Bendana, the link is going to be attached to this video so you can visit his page as well, and you can follow him for further assistance. And if you're watching us on Facebook, please make sure you follow us. And thank you once again for watching. Stay tuned in for the next edition. Thank you, Mr. Roberto, for joining us, and see you some other time.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Bye.